President Biden opened his State of the Union address last night with the statement that history is watching. He even got to that point before moving on to other extreme positions that he and the left share, things like transgender ideology and a continuation of his open border policy and killing of the unborn and so forth. The president's advisors clearly saw that last night was going to be their best opportunity to calm the increasing concern that the left has over the president's age and his poor approval ratings. So this really turned into a campaign speech. But what happened to his promise from 4 years ago to bring unity to our country? Well, joining me now to discuss this and to give his reaction to last night's address is Congressman Tim Walberg. He serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee as well as the Committee on Education and Workforce. He represents the 5th Congressional District of Michigan. Congressman Walberg, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to see you, my friend.
Jody, it's always great to see you, and we miss you there on the floors of Congress, and your voice that was always so strong.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate that and miss you as well, and so many of the colleagues. Well, I tell you, I would love to have been on the floor. Well, I say that. I was glad to be observing from elsewhere to some extent. I tell you, I've never seen a State of the Union address like that. You, likewise, you've been in public service for many years. You've been through many of these State of the Union addresses. Give me your overall 30,000-foot view of what you saw last night.
Well, after 16 of these live State of the Union addresses that I've had the privilege to sit on the floor, and I say privilege because how can you not say it's a privilege to be a member of Congress, of the greatest country on the face of the earth, blessed by God in so many ways to the point that we're able to give away his blessing. And I'm fearful of that. We walked off the floor last night, a number of us conservatives, just shocked, almost silent. We had never heard anything like this before. You know, I was there for Bush, for Obama, for Trump, and now for Biden. And having sat at his inauguration a little over 3 years ago, where he said, I'm going to be the great uniter in this country. That wasn't a uniter last night. It was a destroyer of the foundations of this great country. He spoke to every issue that would destroy the traditional values, the principles upon which this country was founded and which God has blessed. And so to hear what went on last night, it was unbelievable. I mean, he came out angry. He came out breaking protocol, didn't even give our Speaker of the House the opportunity to introduce him, just launched into a speech. And it was angry from that point on. I thought to myself, I remember days when on my way to grammar school, and I would cut across at a corner a lot in the south side of Chicago, and the homeowner would be on his porch hollering at us to get off his lawn. That's how it felt last night from this president, who was there to allegedly show his strength, but I think he showed his anger and his lack of understanding about the greatness of this country. And for all political purposes, he launched into a campaign speech that said, Republicans, we don't want you. I think he said, independents, we don't expect you to support us either. We're going to our radical left, hoping that they'll support us as well. I think he failed last night, and I think he gave us a concern about the security, the health, the freedom of our country in all different ways last night.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Congressman. In fact, that's why I wanted you on. I wanted someone who has been there, who has been through several different administrations. And I remember there, even with Obama, he gave parts of his State of the Union address that everyone would stand up and cheer. There were certain things that everyone agrees upon as America. There was none of that last night. In fact, from my recollection, the only time the Republicans stood up and applauded was in honor of a civil rights activist from 59 years previous, and it was just a matter of respect given to her. But the president came in and he talked about, like you said, very angry, but talked about things like threats to democracy. Does he really expect the American people, coming from a party that is doing everything they can to keep the leading president off the ballot, that they somehow are to be entrusted with democracy and that they themselves are not a threat to it?
Absolutely not, if they would be honest about that. But they're hoping to snow us. Last night with what he talked about, I mean, I don't think anybody that's been keeping up with life, not even necessarily listening to the news and the commentators, but just life, going to the gas station, going to the grocery store, looking at their cost of living increase for Social Security and Medicare. My UAW workers in Michigan who got a massive raise as a result of a strike that went on and have seen much of that raise eaten up because of inflation. At a senior forum this past week that I had in my district, what they wanted to talk about was the fact that they're not surviving with their Medicare and Social Security because it's being eaten up with inflation. And so the president last night, who was talking about successes, I think most people, if they listened to that, they said, wait a second, if that's what's happening, why am I not receiving that same benefit? I think the only thing we could agree with, I almost stood up last night when he said, you know, we're paying more for our potato chips, our snacks, and our Snickers bars, and we're getting less. And I had to say to myself, yeah, I agree with him, but that's his inflation problem because of what he's done. It's forced Hershey and Mars to put less candy in the wrapper for us to experience. So no, it was unbelievable. And then to say that crime is down in this country, you tell that to the residents of Chicago, you tell that to residents of San Francisco, you tell that to the residents of Washington, D.C., even my colleagues, several of them who have been assaulted on the streets. One has had his car hijacked. We've had a good friend, a former member of the Trump team who was shot to death after carjacking in his car in Washington, D.C. You tell that to them.
Congressman.
So this was crazy.
We're going to have to leave it there. Congressman Tim Walberg, always great to have you on the program. Thank you so much. And I could not agree with you more on your assessment of the State of the Union address. Thank you for your leadership and thank you for joining us